The only girlfriend I ever had broke up with me to be free. 3 months later, she shows up 4 months pregnant, claims the baby is mine, and wants to reconcile. Obviously, high school sweethearts, and I thought we were well on our way to being married and have a family together. In fact, we were engaged when all the shit went down, and at that time, I was the happiest guy in the world. One day, out of the blue, without any warning or even a small suspicion on my part, she tells me that she had to talk to me and that I wasn't going to like what she had to say, but she had to say it. She spent about 15 minutes crying and telling me that she would love me forever, but that she felt like we had gotten together too young and she needed to be single for a while. Of course, this confused the shit out of me. What does that mean? So I made her explain to me what she meant. She gave me a whole list of bullshit things about not wanting to have to be responsible for my happiness, wanted to go places without having to worry about me, and other shit that just made me more confused. I told her that she could do any of that right there and right then, and we didn't have to break up for it. I offered to give her space, whatever she needed. Nothing was moving her, so it finally dawned on me to ask her, was this really about wanting to date and see other people? She denied that there was anybody she wanted to date or see, but ultimately, yes, she thought it was what she wanted to do. As you can imagine, I was broken by this. She tried to tell me she loved me again, and I just told her to keep it to her fucking self. She then said she wanted to know if I was going to be okay, and I told her that was no longer any of her concern and walked out the door. She tried calling me and sent several texts, but I just deleted them without reading and deleted her on everything. I would love to tell you I was all manly and uncaring about it, but I sunk into a deep, deep depression. That was 3 months ago, and I have not seen or spoken to her since. That is until yesterday. As I pull into the driveway of my house, she gets out of a car that is parked across the street and starts walking towards me. I don't really look at her and start walking in the house because I have nothing to say to her, but she yells out my name, so I stop and just shoot back with, "What?" I whip around and there she stands, and she is very obviously pregnant. I don't know what to say to her, so I just stand there. She said she's sorry for sneak attacking me, but she had been trying to get a hold of me for quite some time, and she knew I had her blocked, but that she had to talk with me. I'm not happy to see her. I'm really not happy to see the woman I loved my entire life pregnant with some other guy's kid, and I just tell her that we really don't have anything to talk about, and I turn to go inside. She yells out that the baby was mine, which of course stops me dead in my tracks. Long story short, she said she is 4 months pregnant, and that she was about 1 month pregnant at the time she broke up with me but did not know it. She said she didn't really even know or suspect she was pregnant till the second month when she missed her period but had conflicting home pregnancy tests. However, she went to the clinic to get tested there and that it confirmed she was pregnant. She said she spent the next month trying to convince herself to have an abortion but just could not do it. She begged me to let her come in and talk with me. I won't lie, I was probably crueler than I should have been. I told her that I didn't believe that it was mine, that she wanted to go fuck other guys, and that she got knocked up by some guy who wanted nothing to do with her, so she came running to me hoping I would pretend to be the kid's daddy. She of course started crying and she said that she deserved that, but she said that she never even went out with anyone else. I'll try and summarize this as it's already very long. She said that she never went out with anyone else, she never got the chance, and that she was totally honest that she had no one in mind. She said that she believes that being pregnant made her hormonal and that it made her very impulsive, and that the sudden urge to break up with me was just that, a sudden urge. She hadn't been thinking about it. She asked me if I read any of her texts at all. I told her I did not, and she said if I would have read them the next day, I would have seen her telling me that she wanted to talk to take it back and knew that breaking up was wrong. Here's where I stand right now after hours and hours of talking with her. My heart was shattered. There is a part of me that just wants so badly to throw away all of my doubts and fears and just take her in and be both a husband and a father. But as much as I want this, I will not be a father to a child that I did not create with a woman who left me to fuck other men. That doesn't mean I wouldn't be a stepdad or something, but I will not do this with someone who knowingly broke my heart. I have demanded a paternity test. Neither of us have a fucking clue how to do this, but she is going to ask her OB or GYN at her next meeting. I don't know if I have to wait till the baby is born or what, but this is something I have to have done for my own peace of mind. She said she is fine with this as there is zero doubt in her mind that it is mine, as she claims to have never been with anyone else. So here are my questions. Let's assume the child is mine. Where do I go from here? She gave me a letter she wrote when we were separated, and it is dated about a month ago, and in it she writes about deep regret about hurting me, how much she loved me, how this was the biggest mistake of her life. How do I believe her that she hasn't been with anyone else since she left me? Even if the child is mine, that doesn't mean she didn't have sex with someone else. I know it may make me an asshole, but if that is the case, I don't want her back. Obviously, if the child is not mine, this all becomes a non-issue because that is an absolute no for me beyond a shadow of a doubt. What do I do with all of this hurt and anger? I want to love my child, assuming it's mine. And as long as everything she says is true, I think I want to love her again as well. But I've had 3 months of sleepless nights, fits of rage, and soul-crushing depression. She told me she wants to do whatever it takes to make this work for us. She has offered to pay for couples counseling and is offering any type of transparency I want. Right now, my head is spinning. 4 months ago, I would have loved to be a father and make this woman my wife. Now I still have those emotions, however, they are not intermixed with pain or hurt. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Edit. There are so many responses that I can't really get to them all, so I kind of want to make one addition here in hopes of answering most of this. I read what you all were saying, and it was loud and clear that I have issues. I was completely ignorant about hormonal issues, however, I have read up a little on it today, and I see where this is very possible. Please understand, when I wrote this all, I had just gotten done speaking with her, and my emotions were very raw, and I was very confused. I love her with all of my heart. I know that I knew that last night. The reason I can't answer all of your questions is because I am on my way to talk with her. I can't let this go. I've been given a second chance with her, and this is all I want. I am still going to want a paternity test just for my own peace of mind. I hope she can understand that even though I know this is going to hurt her feelings, I think I'm just going to have to take a leap of faith and trust that everything she said about it being her hormones and how she never really wanted this. I'm sorry to anyone I offended because I came across as a grade A douchebag. Relevant comments. Leon Phone says, my money's on the baby being yours. If you guys have only been broken up 3 months, and she's already visibly pregnant to the extent that you could tell as soon as you saw her, it's likely she conceived while you two were still together. I mean, for sure, get the paternity test and don't blindly believe her, but that inclines me to believe she's telling the truth. I think jumping to she's undoubtedly a liar and a cheat in these situations is a bit misguided. Secondly, get it out of your head that people need a valid reason to break up. People can break up for whatever reason they want, even in a 5-year relationship. I think your inability to recognize and respect this has led you to brush aside her bullshit reasons and fixate on the sleeping with other people thing. Thirdly, for people in serious relationships at your age, especially when they've been in those relationships since high school, it is very common to want to break up for this reason. I'm in that age group and know many people who did the same thing. And it's not always about sleeping with other people, often it's just about being independent. For example, being able to make major life decisions without having to take another person's future into account. Surely you can empathize with that feeling of pressure? I know you've been hurt, but I think you're a little blinded by your hurt right now. Opie replied, well, you'll have to forgive me if after 5 years and zero clue this was going to happen that I questioned the motives and didn't just blankly accept the reasoning. Hey, I freely admit it's my only relationship as well, and I was deeply in love, so to be blindsided one day out of the blue kind of hit hard. Did I do a good job of handling things? I don't know, have you ever had a fiancé? Remember, we were more than just boyfriend or girlfriend. Break up with you after a 5-year relationship with no warning. If so, please tell me how you just accepted it in stride and moved on. What now? 666 says, you're not inhuman. You're a bitter, insecure, angry, sad, disrespectful, selfish, and ignorant person who is going to have a miserable life with that attitude. Opie replied, well, at least I'm not one of the inhumans. Okay, sorry, that was my bad attempt at humor. I actually was a comic book nerd, so I envisioned me being blackballed for a while. Let me address this one at a time, and please understand that I am not trying to make excuses, I'm just trying to be honest about where my head is. Although today, I feel a hell of a lot better than I did last night when I first typed this. Bitter. Probably fair to say that. Insecure. Sure, but to my defense, my entire self-esteem was trampled on, so while I know it doesn't make it right, it's just how I coped with the incident. I have low self-esteem issues to begin with, and this just sent me over the edge. If I need professional help with anything, it is probably this. Angry. Look, I came across when I posted this because I was a flurry of emotions, and that was how I felt when I typed it. However, to be blunt, I've spent more times the past 3 months crying than doing anything else. I think my reactions were self-preservation, which included trying to make myself angry because it felt better to be angry than sad. Sad. See above. Disrespectful. The only part one will agree to this would be me telling her that I didn't believe it was mine. Other than that, I don't feel like I have been. I've read this sub before, and the first response I see almost universally is when you break up you go no contact, so that is what I did. Selfish. Well, yeah. And in this case, I'm not even apologizing for it. Of course, it was selfish of me to have all of these feelings and emotions because it was happening to me and nobody else. How else is anyone supposed to act when dealing with their own emotions? I am no more selfish than she would have been if she were dumping me for her reasons, and that wouldn't have made her wrong for being selfish either. Ignorant. Well, absolutely, when it came to the hormones, I was. However, I have read up on it a little today, so I now see that this wasn't just an excuse. All in all, I made somewhat of a bad showing of myself earlier today. I am on my way to see her now, and we will talk more. Update. Hello, everybody. I wanted to stop back by and give everyone a little bit of an update on what has transpired since this weekend. After talking with you guys and reading, I found out that pregnant hormones can really mess with some people's minds. I went to the apartment where she is staying with a friend, and the friend was nice enough to leave so she and I could have a long emotional talk. I'll spare you the lengths and depths of our conversation, but needless to say, it was long, painful, and filled with crying, mostly by me shamefully. I totally broke down. Any and all pretense of being strong and trying to not let anything bother me was just washed away in a matter of moments by her. She makes me very vulnerable, and while I don't like that a lot, I will say that once I got it all off of my chest, I felt like $1,000,000. She was very patient, very kind, and very loving. This was the girl who I have known all of these years. From her end, she stated she never went out with anyone else, did have two guys who knew we were broken up try and ask her out, but she told the first one that she wasn't ready, and by the time the second one asked her, she knew she was pregnant. After hours of talking, we ended up falling into each other's arms, and by this time her roommate came back because she had to go to bed to go to work. So she came home with me to continue talking. We ended up making love all weekend, which at first I thought I would be grossed out, to be honest with you, because I've never even thought about pregnant sex before. I would not have even considered it if I thought for 1 second the kid wasn't mine. That, I guess, is the uptake to all of this. I now believe her 100%, and I'll tell you why. She is insisting that we do a paternity test. If she wasn't sure, she would probably not want to go through with it, but she says that she has never been with anyone else, and I believe her. So yesterday, she had a pre-existing OBGYN appointment, and she set it up so I could go with her. Here's what is so cool. Her doctor is a dude who can't be more than 35 or so, and he was the coolest motherfucker I've ever talked to. I mean, in real life, if I met this guy away from there, he would be a bro of the first order. We went and did the exam, and I got to see the baby on the scope. Man, at home that I'm going to be a daddy at that point. After he did the exam with her, he asked her if now would be a good time for the talk, and she said yes. I had no idea what was going on, but she said she wanted him to talk with me and that it was her idea. She left, and the doctor and I had a chat. He said my GF had spoken with him about everything over a month ago, and while he wouldn't talk about her medical condition exactly, he wanted me to know the facts about female hormones and how it can impact women. Like I said, coolest guy ever. He broke it down so I could understand it. He also said that she had spoken to him yesterday about paternity testing, and they were going to set this up for next week. He said for both of our peace of minds, we should just go ahead and do it. He also spoke for a few men with me about how I was feeling, and even shared a story about how he and his wife nearly separated over a pregnancy-related issue. I left that day filled 100% confident that this is a relationship I want to work to have. I honestly now think she just had a crisis of pent-up frustration or hormones and emotions, and she didn't even know why she was having them. I just got done moving her stuff back to my house about an hour ago. When she gets off work tonight, we are going to embark on our journey to make this work. I'm not going to rush things because either of us may have built up emotions that we don't even know yet, but I have a ring already, and if all goes well for a month or two, I'm going to ask her to marry me. I know both of our families would prefer us to be married if we are going to have a child. Which brings me to my next point. Now I get to tell my parents they are going to be grandparents. Which also leads me to have to tell them we are back together. This should be fun. Anyway, thank you all so very much for helping set me straight. I wanted to believe her, but did not believe the hormone thing. Thanks to some of your stories, I now know the truth. Relevant comments. Murik says, congrats Opie. Wait to tell your parents a week. If they ask about the breakup or paternity or etc., you will have the test results already and can tell them everything she said. Makes you both come off as better and more adult. Also, my wife, then fiancé, did in fact break up with me and call off the wedding while pregnant. Luckily for me, it didn't last even a day, so absolutely nobody else knew about the incident, but it definitely took me a while to get past, pregnancy or no. Good luck and be patient. It is good training for a kid and wedding planning. Because both of those can be hell, but are worth the effort. Fem0879 says, oh thank you Lord, a happy ending. I am so glad for you both. I can't imagine how hard it was to lay out your feelings like that when you finally saw each other. The fact that she understood and didn't judge you for it tells me she's a keeper. Wow for happy endings on Reddit. Zombie San Pandasomi says, it was long painful and filled with crying, mostly by me shamefully. It's okay for dudes to cry, man. Nothing shameful about it. I'm glad this is a happy ending. Maybe get some couples therapy before the baby is born just to make 100% sure there's a good foundation. Kids are hella tough on relationships. Causally call up your mom or dad tomorrow and be like, oh hey, me and girlfriend work things out and are back together. How long of an engagement do you think you'll have? If you time it right, you can ask her to marry you, get married, and then tell the family she's pregnant. If it's going to be a big deal that you get married first, but maybe she'd prefer time to plan an actual wedding and despite family pressure, would prefer the baby be at the wedding. Do whatever you two want to do, don't do something just because the family would prefer it a certain way. I dumped my girlfriend at a restaurant, causing her to fail her probationary period at work. She didn't want to work hard and set me up in front of the boss. I, 27 male, have been in a relationship with my girlfriend Cindy, 26 female, since university. Last September, Cindy's company went under. She took this hard because she loved her workplace, loved her colleagues, and loved her boss. Unfortunately, they just weren't making that much money, so the plug was pulled. When Cindy came home and delivered the news to me, I asked if she wanted me to introduce her to my boss. Having the same major, we work in the same field, and my company is almost always hiring. Cindy said yes, and I texted my boss on the spot. After delivering her CV to him and a short interview process, she was hired in a 3-month probationary position. I was really excited to be working with Cindy. We could save money on gas by carpooling, spend more time together, and have lunch together too. Unfortunately, things did not pan out. To be frank, Cindy was a horrible employee. She showed up to the office 15 to 20 minutes late virtually every day. I had to give up on carpooling with her because I have a morning meeting, and I need to get to work 15 minutes early every day. Cindy's favorite activity at work was opening up a blank Google Doc and looking at her phone under her desk. The hour we get for lunch was often an hour and a half for Cindy, and she really accomplished nothing in her time there. This continued for 3 months. Last Monday was a rare occasion where Cindy was actually ready on time to go to work together. Perhaps this was because of my gentle urging for her to get her shit together, or perhaps it was because her probationary period was ending soon, but we were able to carpool. We went out to lunch together and Cindy ate way too slowly. I was looking at the clock and encouraging her to get a move on, but at the end of the meal, right when we had to leave to make it back on time, Cindy decided she wanted another refill of her soda. I told her time was up, but she was adamant that she absolutely needed another refill. To make matters worse, the restaurant was crowded and we couldn't flag down a server. I put the cash for the meal and a tip on the table, and I told Cindy that I was leaving with or without her. Cindy played chicken with me here, thinking that if she refused to move, I'd have no choice but to wait. But I walked to my car and drove back. Cindy showed up 20 minutes later, visually flustered. The restaurant was a 10-minute walk away, so I'm pretty sure she did end up getting her refill. She has been furious with me since. Last Friday, Cindy got her final judgment for her probationary period. Due to poor punctuality and general lack of direction, my company decided not to hire her for a full-time position. Cindy blames me. She says I made her late and that I ruined everything. Last night, she asked how she was supposed to pay her part of her rent without a job, and I responded, yes, that's a good question. How will you be paying? This threw oil on the proverbial fire, and now she doesn't even want to fight about it anymore. Was I an asshole for what I did here? Comments. Valnair says, this is going to sound crazy, but she may have been intentionally dense about getting back from lunch on time, knowing that Opie would leave without her. He's already set the precedent that he won't be late to work for her with the morning carpools, and then using that to blame him for failing instead of herself. With how she acted at work, she might still actually be self-aware enough to realize she wasn't going to be kept on, so this could have been a plan to guilt Opie into not pushing her too hard about the rent. It sounds like they live together. Opie replied, I know that seems a bit nuts. I've just known some really manipulative people that I could see doing exactly that scenario. I didn't even recognize this as a possibility at the time, but it actually sounds likely now that you say it. I honestly don't understand how any reasonable person would expect to pass the probationary period to a job after being chronically late and screwing around on Instagram all day at work. Necessary Grade 2612 says, not the asshole. Your girlfriend failed her probation all by herself through consistent unprofessional behavior. You even got her the job in the first place. One 20-minute tardiness incident didn't tank her employment. The daily 15 to 20-minute lateness, extended lunches, and phone browsing for 3 months did. She's looking for someone to blame because it's easier than taking responsibility. You leaving her at the restaurant was just the natural consequence of her poor time management. She gambled that you'd enable her behavior and lost. The fact she's now trying to guilt you about rent is manipulative. She had 3 months to prove herself and consistently chose not to. Her employment status is 100% on her. Time for her to learn some accountability and stop blaming others for her failures. Hawk says, "Guess you found out why that company went under." "Not the asshole." Opie replied, "Honestly, yeah. I kind of understand now why she loved her old company so much. I probably should have seen the signs earlier too. Despite both of us starting work at 9 o'clock and her old company being farther away than mine, I cannot recall a single day that she left after me. Even one time when I was running very late due to stomach issues, I distinctly recall leaving at 9:05 with Cindy still doing her makeup." Update. Anyway, Cindy decided that she was going to take some time off of work for her mental health. Knowing that she had absolutely no savings, I asked how she was going to contribute to rent, groceries, and utilities, but Cindy said that wasn't my concern. I decided to be upfront and flat out tell her not to expect me to financially support her. She responded by calling me a low provider, whatever that means. It's also not right because I'm more of a no provider. I'm not into arrangements where I financially support a woman for companionship. At this point, I knew that our relationship was basically over, but I decided that I'd stay in the apartment we rent for the next 2 months, as we have paid our rent in full until the end of May, and then leave. Then Cindy began taking steps to actively sabotage me at work. For example, last Friday, when I was getting ready for work, I couldn't find my shoes. After letting me look for them for 15 minutes, Cindy finally said that she washed them. I'm fairly sure Cindy has never washed anything other than a plate or her own laundry, but on Friday morning she abruptly decided to wash my shoes. Right. They were soaking wet. I had to wear an old pair of Crocs that were 2 sizes too small to the office that day. On my way home, I bought new shoes and kept them in my car. Then Cindy began spamming me with texts during a meeting on Saturday when I had told her I was having, saying there was a guy banging on our door. She insisted I needed to come home right away. I checked our Ring camera and saw nothing. When I texted her back saying, "So," she said it must have been the neighbor or something. It's worth mentioning here that I can see the neighbor's door on the camera too, and nobody was banging on it either. I got the picture of what was going on, and realizing the next escalation would be having my tires slashed or brakes cut after work that day, I went back to our apartment, gathered my belongings, and left. Cindy naturally went off the rails, but I got out safely. Now I'm at my buddy's house for a few days until I can find a new living situation. Thank you for all the advice you gave me. I'm sure this can act as a cautionary tale in various ways. Unfortunately, I'm kind of out of it after all this drama, so I'll leave that part up to you. Comments. Huge Shelter 3401 says, "Thank you for the update and good luck during this transition. If you haven't said anything to your boss, you might want to update him or her just in case she continues to try to sabotage your work." Quarantinis RU's replied, "And the landlord, OP, doesn't want to be on the hook for damages Cindy does over the next couple of months." Equal Brilliant 2640 says, "OP needs to let the building manager know he moved out because of domestic abuse. Many places now have it where you can break a lease without penalty if leaving an abusive relationship. They also need to let them know they've left in case the ex decides to destroy the place and leave him on the hook for everything." Capital Yogurt 6148 says, "Jumping onto this to say that in my state, anyone with an active restraining order can by law break any lease at any time with no notice and no penalties regardless of what's written in the lease. I'm not sure that OP would be able to get an RO just yet, as terrible as that sounds, because it definitely sounds like he could use one. But it's something to keep in mind should things escalate further." Alicia 235A says, "Turns out she put more effort into sabotaging OP than she ever did into that job." StrangeAd 263 says, "Some HR departments have safety plans for domestic abuse. Consider using it if it is available.